Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome into U.S. Bank Stadium, into Vikings Postgame Live, presented by Mystic Lake. Well, yes, as you see on the score right there, the Falcons embarrassed the Vikings 40-23 here today. I'm Mark Rosen, joined by Pete Bercich and Ben Leber. Coming up on the show, we will break down another really outstanding game by wide receiver Justin Jefferson, and we'll also hear from head coach Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins. But first, we want to start with sad news that broke during the course of the game. His son, Chad Hartman, tweeted out the fact that his father had passed away. We're, of course, talking about the legendary Sid Hartman, 100 years old. An amazing life, amazing career with the Star Tribune. In fact, guys, as we talk about Sid, and we could go on, I certainly could go on for an hour about Sid. Listen to this stat that the Star Tribune Sports put out late today. Sid Hartman produced 21,235 byline stories in his career from 1944 until the one that ran in today's Star Tribune. Think about that. Astonishing life, astonishing career. And I thought it was also kind of ironic that there was a big story on 93-year-old Bud Grant today about hunting and what he loves to do. And I think back to the day that Sid was asked by Bud Grant to introduce him when he was inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1994 in Canton, Ohio. Of all people, here's Bud Grant, hunter, fisherman, outdoorsman. Sid, nothing to do with any of that stuff. Yet they formed a bond that started at the University of Minnesota and never ended to his death today. So, guys, I know you'll have your stories as well. Pete, you told me one off air before we got here. Ben, I'm sure as well. But I mentioned in my tweet, I said we knew this day would come, but we're still shocked by it because Sid has always been around, always been here, always been a presence, always yelling at us, always doing something. And I think the stories will go on forever.
Yeah, I mean, he'll always have a legacy. And I don't know if I've ever seen a city or a sports town where one guy was so enmeshed in everything that has gone on here for the last 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really amazing, for Sid. And one thing I always remember about Sid, Ben, is that he was a bulldog. I mean, he would always be getting in there. He never let anything stop him. And, his legacy, I guess, we'll all remember Sid Hartman.
Yeah. The thing is with Sid was, I didn't know who Sid Hartman was really until it was probably, a couple months after I got here in 2006. And I was doing an interview, and I was in the locker room, and I was told by the PR guys, like, hey, when this guy comes around, you give him the interview first. You let him sort of have the table. And I was like, who is this guy? Whatever. He's just got this super old tape recorder that nobody else was using. He's like using this antique thing. And I'm like, all right. So I do this interview, and I'm like, who is this guy? And they're like, this is Sid Hartman. Yeah. And they kind of gave me the quick little rundown, the 30,000-foot view of who he was. Then I had to do the research. I'm like, oh, damn. Like, this guy is an icon. He's already a Hall of Famer in my book. And so I'm like, all right, whenever Sid comes in the locker room, if there's a scrum of people, I'm going to find that old tape recorder and speak into that thing.
Well, from selling newspapers to the gamblers in Minneapolis back in the roaring 30s, whatever it was. I mean, he was selling for a nickel the kid can, and all the way to earning respect. Like Randy Moss would not start his news conference or his chat with the media until Sid was there. He said, I'm not talking to you guys till Sid gets here. I mean, he felt that kinship with him all these years. And whether he was talking about sports or talking about Frank Sinatra, it went on and on and on. But quite a loss. We were supposed to celebrate his 100th birthday on St. Patrick's Day. Bob Hagan, the Vikings' longtime PR director, had arranged all of us to meet at Lou Nanny's restaurant. That's when COVID hit. We had to postpone it. We're thinking, well, we're still going to have this thing at some point. Maybe we still will in our own way to celebrate a life an extraordinary life. So more on Sid Hartman. I'm sure the days will be passing as well. But we got to talk about this football game. Sid would not have enjoyed it. I could tell you. Let's take a look at the highlights, and there weren't many. Started with Kirk Cousins throwing an interception in the first play of the game, and things kind of went downhill in a hurry, guys, after that. Atlanta just looking for their first win, got it. They fired their head coach, they fired their GM, and they came out looking like the Super Bowl team that we saw a couple of years ago when they were on the cusp of winning it.
Well, I mean, you take a look and you come into this game and you know you don't have Dalvin Cook, so you're counting on your other offensive people to take over. And Kirk Cousins, from the beginning, with the interception on play one, just kind of set the tone for the day. And the Vikings were never really in this game, Ben Leber. And, we're seeing some great plays by Justin Jefferson. His family celebrating. Justin Jefferson, at least, he's fighting. He's out there playing the entire game, and I love what this young man has in front of him.
Well, I love the fact that we're going to talk about Justin Jefferson, I think, a lot during this broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
But, the thing about him is every time he gets the ball, he's looking to score. No matter what, he's going to split some defenders. He's going to try to break a tackle. His eyes are always in the end zone. And this is a play at the end of the game that just, I think, epitomizes the approach that the Atlanta Falcons had on offense. They were willing to be bold. They were willing to be creative. They're looking for ways to take advantage of our young and youthful secondary, and they pretty much picked those guys apart throughout the whole game.
We talked before the game. We weren't quite sure what kind of effect the firing of their head coach and GM would have on this team. But Raheem Morris took over, and they obviously responded to whatever message he was giving. That they had lost some crushing games in the fourth quarter. When we look at these stats, Pete, it's pretty one-sided in terms of obviously the final score, time of possession. Look at that, 40 minutes to 19 for the Vikings.
Yeah, and again, you don't need to go any farther than the 3 turnovers. That's the big thing. We're a team whose identity is on the ground. You get 32 yards. On top of that, yes, it's again back to the 2-1 possession. The game started in a slide, so to speak, with a big mistake, and then it just went south kind of from there. The defense, it's hard to hang it all on their hat. Obviously, they didn't play the way that they wanted to, but still, it just zero in the way of momentum that we carried at any point in this game, and that's the most disappointing part.
Yeah, I looking at this game coming into it, I kind of said to myself, okay, to keep this super simple and simplified, it's going to come down to turnovers. And the games that we've lost the turnover battle. And surprise, surprise, the game that we win against the Houston Texans, we won the turnover battle. So it can be that simple. And our team as a whole is not good enough to overcome some of those turnover differentials. And so for me, I was like, all right, if we win the turnover battle against the Atlanta Falcons, we're going to win this game. And right off from the very first play, we didn't. Now, we got one back, but ultimately we did not win the turnover battle. And 17 points in the first half, the Atlanta Falcons got points off of our turnovers. That's the big difference in this game.
Well, they got one back getting the turnover battle, but then the Vikings stopped themselves, and they got stopped on the 1-yard line. They could have cut the lead to 10-7. I'm not saying it would have changed the whole game around, but certainly a momentum switch at that point, Pete.
No question about it. You know that Atlanta's going to come in here. This isn't Seattle. This isn't us playing Seattle on the road where you need to make things and have things happen on fourth down and go for it on fourth down. It's a different type of game, different type of team. For them to not let us score there, that's a huge rally on their part because they've been known for what? For blowing leads. We don't get any points on the board, and then the rest is history. So just all the things that I think the mentality of the whole thing just from the get-go. You normally we defer. We win the toss and we defer. We win the toss, we take the ball, we go out, one play, bam, interception. And it's just like no one recovered. We didn't recover from that ever. Kirk Cousins right now is on pace to throw 26 interceptions this season.
Ouch.
It has to end. It has to stop.
That's a big ouch.
You can't have your quarterback playing that way.
And a lot of yards he piled up, 343 were in so-called garbage time. Justin Jefferson, Ben, though, we got to look for a silver lining, continues to impress in a lot of different ways, a lot of different levels. He caught 9 passes for 166 yards today. His 537 receiving yards was a rookie record at this point for the Vikings, even surpassing the likes of Stephon Diggs and Randy Moss.
Well, the thing that I'm most impressed with as a young rookie is his ability to understand the nuance of route running. That the little slant touchdown pass, his first touchdown catch, he does such a great job of setting up the defender to get him flat-footed, and he uses his speed and his quickness to come inside. Now, Pete, you and I were laughing the touchdown at the end of the game, like who bites on a stutter and go at that point in time? But he still has to run the route the way it's supposed to be, that it was coached. And he comes off the line, he stutters his feet, the cornerback jumps, and then he has the speed and the quickness to get up to full speed so quick, and the ball's delivered perfectly. Yes, The guy's fast. The guy has home run ability, but his ability to understand and how to set up defenders is impressive.
And I look at this chart, and I want to just piggyback on what Ben was saying. It's the yards after catch that are impressive. And he wants to score. He finds a way to get that ball into the end zone. So many receivers out there, they can catch and move the chains, but the yards after catch is what's important. And right now, Justin Jefferson is doing exactly that. I also love the way that he can tell when there's a 50-50 ball thrown his way. He is so strong and goes up for the football. His hands are so big. He's not letting the DB get that football or pry it from his hands. So I think as a receiver, especially in those situations, he's so strong. So strong.
Let's take a look at those 2 touchdown receptions. He can beat you in a couple different ways. We've already seen that this year. We can go up and get a ball, and this is a perfect indication of his strength, too, around the goal line.
And this is a great job by the Vikings offensive line, giving Cousins all day. This is like his number 3 read. Jefferson is really his outlet. And then just right there, getting that ball, like to Ben's point, over the goal line, getting that thing and finding a way to score a touchdown.
Well, and then on that, if you look back on that touchdown, he got the corner to open his hips the opposite way, and that's when he cut back to the inside. And this is the stutter and go that we're talking about that, really kind of inexcusable from the cornerback's perspective to jump that stutter, but that's the way that the play was called. And so he runs the play the way it's supposed to be ran. He gets the corner to bite, and he gets up to top speed so quickly to find that separation, find that hole, and then Kirk delivers a good football. And then again, after that, it was just his run after catch ability. So the kid is dynamic, and like Pete, you were saying, it seems like, and I don't have the stats in front of me, I don't have the percentages, but it seems like every time the ball is thrown in the vicinity of his catch radius, he's catching it, whether it's one hand or 2 hands.
You look at this Atlanta offense, a lot of these guys went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and you kind of scratch your head when you watch them perform and go, this team hasn't won a game? I know they shot themselves in the foot 100 different ways, but you look at the talent with Matt Ryan and Jones and Ridley and their wide receivers, they put on a show, and the Vikings just really had no answer for Matty Ryan all afternoon.
Well, no, and when you come into this game when you're an 0-5 team, you fire the GM, you fire the head coach. They're going to perk up because they know they're next, right? The players are looking at this saying the only people left to get rid of are sitting in this room. And so they come in here with really a nothing to lose type of mentality. And I think we also saw what the presence of Julio Jones means not only to Matt Ryan, but that entire team. I mean, 147 yards for him. And Matt Ryan, again, a lot of things underneath, short passes. They didn't run the ball as well as I thought they could or wanted to. I mean, Gurley's a darn good running back, but they averaged about 2.5 yards per carry. And so they just didn't we did a great job defensively, I think, stopping the run. But yet whenever Matt Ryan got up to the line of scrimmage and saw one-on-one coverage on the outside, he felt incredibly comfortable throwing it outside to his receivers.
Well, as we look at the scatter chart, Ben, too, and you just hit the nail on the head there, Pete, about feeling comfortable, because we've seen a lot of times when he did not feel comfortable in the pocket, and the Vikings would tee off like a lot of teams would on Matt Ryan.
Well, the thing is, this shouldn't really surprise anybody. If you're the Vikings defense looking at how to prepare for this game, the first 2 weeks of the season with the healthy Julio Jones, 700 yards and 6 touchdowns for Matt Ryan. They look like they're going to set the league on fire. Then he misses those 2 games. In those 2 games, Matt Ryan only has a 65 passer rating, so they kind of lost their identity. They lost their rhythm. Now that he was back in the lineup, it's like, okay, this is a very potent offense with a lot of weapons, and they showed it today. And I think a lot of it has to go to Dirk Cutter, the offensive coordinator, for setting these guys up pre-snap. They made our guys confused by getting some stack formations, a lot of crossing routes, and we saw at times, Pete, we're like, our guys were just flat out letting guys go. I don't know if they expected guys on the other side of the field to pick up some of those crossing routes and short routes, but they did, and they took advantage of our guys just miscommunicating, not thinking about what routes were going to come around, and they took the ball and ran with it.
I think what guys like Cameron Dantzler and Jeff Gladney are learning is that it doesn't matter who you're playing and what team you're playing and what their record is. You're facing some great receivers week in and week out. And you look at the first touchdown by Julio Jones, you had him bracketed. You had Harrison Smith on the inside. All Cameron Dantzler has to do is stay outside, stay in your lane, do your job, not everybody else's, but do your job. And he doesn't get that touchdown. So the younger guys are really, really starting to, they have to learn it, and they have to learn it yesterday. We're running out of time. for these guys to realize that every single game, every single play of no matter what the team's record is that you're facing, you're going to come up against some good quarterbacks and some great receivers. There's not a week off. You don't play a team, you don't play a Division I AA team on your schedule and not have to worry about bringing your A game. You have to do it every single play.
Well, the thing that's frustrating to me is that look at last week, and we talk about Cam Dantzler. And I know that we're kind of picking on a young rookie here, but like you said, we've got to start making these strides yesterday. He lets DK Metcalf go across the field and just drops him in coverage, where that's not a technique thing. Mm-hmm. That's not anything other than just a brain lapse. You can't have those in those moments. And then again today, where you're talking about the bracket coverage, all you have to do is stay to the outside. Just stay to the outside, and you're gonna press and vice that guy right into Harrison Smith as a safety. So don't try to do too much. It's one thing, Mike Hughes last year, we kind of got on him a little bit where he was doing all the little things right, but at the point of attack, he was losing the battle. So his pre-snap alignment was right, his leverage was right. He just wasn't making the play at the point of attack. Now this is the opposite for Cam Dantzler. Now Cam is lining up right, but he's not staying there. I don't know where his eyes are. I don't know where his thought process is, where he's not doing his job.
Ben, before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts about the perspective of where we are with this Vikings season, because they were one of 3 fourth down plays of beating Seattle last week on the road. And then you think to yourself, okay, they win today. They're a 2-3 team. They're back in, or 3-3. They'd be back in the hunt, basically mentally, to kind of make a push after the bye. Now all of a sudden you're 1-5. You got the Packers coming up after the bye week on the road. Tell me what the mindset of Mike Zimmer's coach team is right now, where you're trying to teach these guys to get better, and you have to fight through the obvious, which is the record at the moment.
Well, I think that was the disappointing thing for me was just how flat and uninspired and unmotivated they looked today. They have faced a gauntlet of teams early in the season with a very young, inexperienced team, and there was a lot of silver linings to come from that. Green Bay, yes, it's a great football team. Tennessee's looking like a great football team. We know Seattle's a great football team. Indianapolis, one of the best defenses in the league right now. So there are some things to look back on, and there are some moral victories. This game today was disappointing because all you have to do is focus on one game, and then you get a bye week. You get everybody back healthy going against Green Bay when you come out of the bye week. And they came out flat. They had no fight. They had no punch. And that's the thing that I'm really upset about as a fan is, guys, we have something to build on. You're trending in the right direction. If we would just take those positives and build off those, today was not one of those days.
Well, again, it kind of did look like the Packer game to a certain extent. The Packers put up 43 in the opener here, and that's not like a Mike Zimmer coach team, to not having won a home game, but also give two of them giving up over 40 points, which is really shocking when you think about Mike Zimmer, no matter how old, how inexperienced his team is. Well, we'll see what happens after the bye. Ben, thanks much as always. We'll be chatting with
guys.
you at KFEN during the week as well. As Ben departs, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Mike Zimmer, did in his own way sit down with the media at a distance on Zoom, of course, here at US Bank Stadium to discuss today's loss.
Okay, obviously give Atlanta credit. We didn't play very good today. It's hard for me to figure out how we can continue to get better and play like we did a week ago and then play as poorly as we did this week. We didn't do very many things right, and we got to get it fixed.
Mike, what did you see on Kirk Cousins' various interceptions, and what's kind of going on? I mean, he had 6 last year, and he's already up to 10 this season.
I'm not sure. The first one, he was trying to throw an over route, and the guy undercut it, came from underneath. The second one was looked like an inside breaking route, and I don't know if I didn't see the corner. And then the third one, the ball got tipped.
Hey, Mike, with the run game, is it just a matter of a lack of opportunities there, or did you see poor execution too?
Well, I think it was probably a little bit of both. Once it got going, then we didn't have much of an opportunity to run the football. But we really weren't very effective when we ran it early. And then you get down 14-0 or whatever it was, and you start throwing the ball more.
Coach, I know it's tough after a loss right now, but I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on the passing of Sid Hartman.
Yeah, Sid was a great man, a great sports writer, great friend of us. it's a sad day. We're definitely going to miss him. I always look forward to when he was able to come into the facility and sit down in my office and just talk about all different things. But he was a great man and very generous, very caring, very, very smart man.
Just to add to what Mike Zimmer had to say, the Vikings did release an official statement on the passing of Sid Hartman at the age of 100 today from Mark and Ziggy Wilf. Here's the quotes. Our hearts are broken with the news of Sid Hartman's passing. It is nearly impossible to put into words what Sid meant to sports world and to Minnesota. He was an iconic sports figure, a tenacious reporter, and a tireless advocate for his beloved state. His doggedness and work ethic were unmatched, but it was Sid's ability to nurture relationships that truly set him apart. He was a confidant and a loyal friend to countless athletes and coaches across the country. The impact that Sid had on collegiate and professional sports can never be replicated and will never be forgotten. His presence and his personality were constants during the Vikings' first 60 seasons. Sid welcomed our family to town in 2005, and we will always appreciate his support for us as owners and for the Vikings franchise. Our prayers are with the entire Hartman family, signed Mark and Ziggy Wilf and the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, you talk about his relationships, getting back to Sid briefly, Pete Bercich. Back in the day, before we had these things called cell phones, Sid had a Rolodex and his black book. and everyone always wondered what was like in that black book and the names he had, because he would scribble them all in there because he had a lot of close personal friends. And he had phone numbers for everybody. And you talk about a treasure chest of phone numbers and contacts and the stories about waking people up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It didn't matter to him. If he needed to get a hold of someone coming back from the Vikings arrived back like on a charter flight from Seattle at 3 in the morning, and he needed to get a quote, he would call whoever it was. It would be Bud Grant or Mike Tice or Brad Childress. Sid would call him.
And I think for everyone out there, it's kind of the nod to what Sid was about, and the fact that he was a pain in the rear end. I mean, he would call you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He would barge in. You would sit there and see people standing around, and Sid comes in, and bam, he's going right to the front. But it lets everyone out there know that that's what you have to do. That's kind of the way you need to be relentless, to never give up. And Sid was that way, even though he had earned a front row seat throughout his 100 years of his life and the 80 years in sports broadcasting, he just doggedly got after every story that he possibly could. And what a great lesson. And if there's something to pass on in his legacy, I think to young people, that's it. The guy never gave up.
No, you got to be tenacious and understand what relationships mean in this business. When it's all said and done, it was always a relationship business for Sid. And as gruff as he could be, he had a heart of gold, not just for his grandkids, but for a lot of people around this town. And that's not to be forgotten. In fact, as Kirk Cousins began his news conference today after the very tough loss, he acknowledged the passing of Sid Hartman as well.
First of all, I'd just like to extend my condolences to the Hartman family. Just found out that Sid had passed, and I'm so grateful that I got to meet him and got to know him. What a life he lived, what a legacy he left, and I'll be, praying for their family in the days ahead. Not much to say about the game. It was not good enough, especially in the first half, and I'll take the responsibility for it. So I'll take any questions you have. Well, when you turn the ball over on the first play, I think that's about as tough of a start as you can have, given their offensive short field. So that's not the way you want to start. You know what? You just have to play well, in this business. And the reality is, if the pace, that I'm on in terms of the interceptions, if that were to continue, I won't finish the season. I won't, you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of, you got to improve, whether it's, them telling me, hey, we got to improve, or them pulling me. You got to get better, and that'll be what the rest of the season will be about for me, trying to protect the football as best I can, because when you turn the ball over, it really hurts your chances to win, and I know that, and just need to improve as we look ahead to the rest of the season.
Well, here's Kirk Cousins' scatter chart, Pete Bercich, and again, a lot of completions, a lot of yards gobbled up as the game wore on and the game was out of reach. But interesting comment he made there about, if I don't improve, get better. I mean, they're not going to bench Kirk Cousins. They're paying him a lot of money. They're suggesting that maybe Sean Mannion would come out to start the second half, and it sounds like, okay, if they had a backup that was a young kid you wanted to take a look at, but they're paying him a whole lot of money to be this quarterback.
And I think you start right here with the leadership aspect of this team, because Dalvin Cook is a quiet leader. He gets it done on the field. Kirk Cousins needs to be that vocal leader, that guy that's going to help the offensive line, especially the guys that you have moving in and out at guards. You need someone to take over. And you made a mistake and you threw a bad play, but you got to move on, and you can't play this game not make a mistake. You have to lay it out there every single week, every single play, every single game. I just want to see some fire in the belly. I just want to see someone who, it gets upset and it, that it matters to them, and then puts it on their shoulders to say, I'm going to come back and do something about it. We saw him do this before. We saw him do this in Green Bay a couple years ago. He can do that, but today it was lifeless from the beginning, from the first play all the way almost to the end of the game. It was just lifeless, and I hate that feeling, and it's so hard to watch it unfold like that out on the field.
It seems many times that Kirk will take one or two steps forward, then 2 or 3 steps backward. This is where agonizing the fan base right now, and the Kirk haters are out and thinking, we're not seeing it yet. I think it's not just the X's and O's, it's the fire that you said to kind of find a way of rallying this team, and now it's really going to be on him after the bye going into Green Bay to do exactly that, forgetting the record for a minute. Go out and win a game that you're not supposed to win,
right?
And put it on your own shoulders to do it,
right? And with the way the situation is now, you have a Herculean effort coming up, right? You have to go to Green Bay and win. You got to play the Bears. You got to play Detroit, all of which won today. Well, Green Bay's playing right now, but all those teams are very, very good teams. Give the guys in the locker room some faith in knowing that you are going to step up and you are going to fix this thing. It's like, give them something to look forward to.
Yep.
Give them something that they can build on. And right now, anyone watching this game knew what the problem was and what had happened. It's just, where do we go from here? And it starts and stops with me, and follow me, because I am going to take us to that next level.
You mentioned some of the other NFC North scores. Let's take a look at it. The Lions, look at this, beating up the Jacksonville Jaguars. Matthew Stafford with a very effective day as well, 34-16 over Jacksonville. The Chicago Bears, somehow, some way, they keep winning, beating Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina 23-16. Nick Foles taking over the number 1 job. Yeah, he's doing it now. 23 out of 39 for almost 200 and the touchdown. Bridgewater did throw a couple interceptions. No touchdown passes. So Teddy not with a good day today. And right now, Tampa Bay over the Packers. Tom Brady against Aaron Rodgers. The Packers, I believe, had a 10-0 lead, and the Bucs have come roaring back. Rodgers not having a good day by those stats so far.
No, now with those numbers, we don't know the interception count right now, but for Rodgers to be at 114 yards toward the end of the second quarter, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so there you go. Tom Brady coming back, and so the Vikings are I think they're in last place right now. They're 1-5. And my goodness, they got a lot of work to do, and you're not going to get a lot of. Dalvin Cook will hopefully be back against Green Bay, but that's about the only cavalry that's coming to any rescue right now with this football team from an injury standpoint.
No, you're absolutely right. And so Calvin's been such a big part of the offense, and I think if we've learned anything, he can't be the 180 yards a game guy. Right, you can't. It just doesn't hold up. His body just isn't made for that much of a workload. So you're going to have to pace him somehow in some way, and that's very hard to do when it's a desperate time. When you have to win, you have no room or zero room for mistakes the rest of the way. Really, the only guys that are going to believe that this team can turn things around right now are going to be the coaches and the players in the room. So Dalvin Cook, getting him back is going to be a great thing. Defensively, we got to get those young DBs to grow up quickly. I mean, too many mistakes, too many issues in the back end. All it takes is one play when you're going against the Julio Jones and some of these receivers that we're going to see over the next few weeks. I mean, that's why they call it the NFL.
We saw what happened with the Falcons. They fired their coach. They fired their general manager. Do you anticipate anything happening with any other people being released or being unemployed with the Minnesota Vikings in the next week?
No, I don't. I think that's one of the things with this club is the stability that they've had here over the last few years, and the put this all on the coaching per se. It was interesting to listen to Zimmer in his postgame conference, and he was kind of at a loss, so to speak. He said we just didn't play well. We go to, I don't know what to do. You go to the play the 12th man in Seattle, prime time, and you have that team beat and you let them off the hook, and then you come here and play a winless franchise, and it's not even a close game for a majority of it. And I guarantee you he's just doesn't know. It's hard when you don't know exactly what needs to be fixed. This is a situation where you got to take a step back. Maybe that's a good time for the bye and reevaluate everything and say, this is what we're going to do going forward, and make those changes. And you have a week or a couple weeks to practice and get guys ready, and off you go. That's about all you can do.
They'll be burning the midnight oil to try to fix what's going on right now, Pete. Appreciate it very much as always, Pete Bercich. And a reminder, here's a look at the programming coming up with Minnesota Vikings. Tuesday night, Vikings replay, 10 o'clock on Fox 9+. Wednesday night, The Voyage on Vikings.com. Also, Vikings replay, the director's cut, always fun programming at 10:35 p.m. on Fox 9. Thursday, Vikings Live, 6 o'clock on Fox 9. And then Saturday, Vikings Game Plan, 11 p.m. and also on Fox 9. And then Sunday, with the bye week coming up, Vikings Game Day Live as well. So no game next week. The Vikings, if you look at their next games after the bye week, Green Bay, Detroit, at Chicago. So a lot of NFC North. They got 3 home games coming up in November, but that was it. This is their one home game in the month of October. That's it. And not a way to think about the loss today. That is for sure. So for Pete Bercich, I'm Mark Rosen. I want to thank you for watching Vikings Postgame Show, brought to you by Mystic Lake. And God bless you, Sid Hartman. Thanks for the memories.